Get some help, Jared Vandera. What is up, everybody? Welcome to Pub Sports Radio. This is Stat Tigers. We're going to be taking a deep dive into UFC Vegas 64. If you are wondering why I am wearing a mask, we have Halloween tomorrow, and this card kind of fits Halloween. I mean, you take a look at the card, and it's terrifying. I mean, this is a scary, scary card. It doesn't get much more scary than Tamires Vidal, Ramona Pascual. So we got to celebrate Halloween a little bit, guys. But yeah, man, this card's it's rough. But I also thought last week's card was rough. And shout out to Weezy. He had a winning night on a tough card. I had a winning night on a tough card. Small profit, but man, last night's card was just wild. Lots of unexpected things, from the Chase Hooper fiasco to the Dustin Jacoby decision, which hurt both me and Weezy, but came out with some profit, and that's always the goal. And kind of kept it short and sweet last week, and that's going to be me this week. I'm keeping it short and sweet. This card is it's worse than last week. I mean, there were trap after trap after trap last week, and I feel like that's the case here, Weezy. So, Weezy, any initial thoughts on this card?
Yeah, instead of UFC Vegas 64, let's go with UFC Dick Saw 64, because that's how many dick saws are going to be coming your way if you get neck deep into any of the fights on this card, man. There's some really low-level shit going on here. There are some fights where there's kind of like obvious results, and the lines are already juiced to the tits, so there's just no meat left on the bone. And yeah, and then there's just some names where you're like, am I really putting my money on a Johnny Munoz Jr., Ludwig Shalinian fight? Yeah, and watching tape on some of these fights has got me thinking I don't need to watch a horror movie for months, because this is just horrible. Tamires Vidal, what are you doing in the UFC? I have no clue what's happening here. Let's make the best of it, Brady. All you guys that are watching, I have to commend each and every one of you who are watching Stat Diggers tonight. You are the real UFC fans. You're here, rain or shine, and this is a rainy week. But we always say, Brady, and it really is the truth, the good cards are the ones where you make money. And last week we were this close to having a really good week. A couple things just didn't quite go our way there, but that's what happens sometimes. And if we find 3-4 good spots on this card where we can cash a unit and a half, we're going to be laughing our ass off and rolling into 281 with a couple of week winning streak here. So let's do the best we can to break down these fights and find something besides just terrible fighters and matchups, but find opportunities to cash some bets here.
Yeah, I mean, be careful this week, guys. I mean, this is probably the 1-800 gambler card of the year. I count at least 4 or 5 fights where if you bet on some of these fights, I mean, there's something wrong. So, but I think it's gonna be a fun card. It's just sketchy. And then, of course, next week we have UFC 281. So it's gonna be another card where I'm light. I'm hoping to come out not getting completely destroyed, and hopefully with some profit. So I do want to shout out the chat before we get started. If you guys have not already, be sure to leave a like on the video. Also subscribe here to Pub Sports Radio. Me and Weezy do go live every Sunday, 7:15 p.m. Eastern time. We got Mark's first one in the chat. We got Propaholic. We got Kiwi. We got DXJC. We got Bob in the chat. We got Tim, the split decision king. Had to have had a night last night with how many split decisions there were. We got Sean in the chat. We have Prison in the chat as well. We got Snap. We got Kyle. We got Pink in the chat as well. We got Ansov. What is up, guys? Oh, we got Eric in the chat. What is up, Eric? How you doing? Hopefully you had a good vacation, buddy. And we got Rob as well. Dirty Reg. Thank you all so much for hanging out. But, Weezy, I say we get into it, and let us start with the people's main event, the fight that everybody's been looking forward to. We have Tamires Vidal going against Ramona Pascual, and I put out a tweet last night saying, while everybody is out there, watching the Silva Paul fight, I'm going to be balls deep into the tape of this fight, and I did just that. I watched the entire career of Tamires Vidal, and after watching that, I posted an update here that you can maybe see on the screen, and I smashed the living shit out of my TV. I didn't think I was coming on tonight. It was that bad. It was that bad. I watched the entire career, and coming out of it, I still don't know what Vidal is good at. And honestly, it kind of reminds me of that South Park episode. If you guys have ever seen South Park, where they were doing the debate with the giant turd or the giant douche and the turd sandwich, and it's like you got to vote for either the giant douche or the turd sandwich. I feel like I'm in that exact situation. I have to pick either a giant douche, which in this case is probably Vidal, or I have to pick a turd sandwich, which in this case is Ramona Pascual. And the sad thing is, I mean, that's our job. We had to pick these fights, but luckily we do not have to bet these fights. So I will not be betting on this fight. But as far as making a pick, it's got to be Pascual. But Weezy, these are fights that I stopped betting on a long time ago, and since then I can sleep better. I feel much better mentally. I'm not waking up in the middle of the night with cold sweats.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not screaming. I'm not waking up my wife screaming, "Why did I bet on Gina Mazzani?" Gina Mazzani. So I will not be betting on this fight. And if you bet on this fight, you need to go to jail. You need to go to jail if you bet on this fight. Weezy, give me the turd sandwich and Ramona Pascual, but oh my gosh. What do you think of this fight?
You know, I think I could best sum it up by telling the audience a story, Brady. So let's have a little story time with Uncle Weezy. Instead of it being on just the tip, let's start off Stat Diggers today with a little story time with Uncle Weezy. We'll take you back to the year 1994 at Northern Illinois University, the Harvard of the Midwest, where great minds are born, where leaders are made, where champions are born, okay? Sigma Chi fraternity house during Rush, but this was during women's Rush, right? So right next to our house was the Alpha Phi house. Right next to that was another sorority house, the Sigma Kappa house. And so what we would always do when there was women's Rush, we knew that there were going to be a bunch of women walking through our neighborhood, and we wanted to kind of get a look at them, right? So we'd kind of like go outside. We'd be outside in the back playing beach volleyball, playing hoops, throwing horseshoes. And I'm like waiting to play horseshoes with a buddy of mine. He winds up getting into a basketball game. I'm up next to play horseshoes. I wound up playing with this guy, Todd, who I didn't have much faith in as a partner, but we wound up throwing shoes, right? But then we had a rule at our fraternity house. So the rule was if you got shut out in anything, whether it was volleyball, whether it was basketball, whether it was horseshoes, whether it was Sega hockey, if you lost 6-0, you had to do a naked run around the fraternity house as a shame, you know, so people could yell shame at you for performing horribly, right? And if you lost a horseshoes game 10-0, you had to do a naked lap around the house. Now, of course, if you were playing with any partner who knew how to throw shoes even a little bit, you would never get skunked 10-0. But I get stuck with this dude Todd, right, who's throwing shoes like he's never fucking done it before. We get our ass shaved. 10-0, Brady. 10-0. So I'm like, fuck, man. You know, I look in the house, the sorority house next door. I'm like, I better do this fucking naked run now, because if I don't, there's going to be like 50 women out here, right? So I'm like, Todd, you better fucking come in here and we got to fucking do a naked run because you fucking suck at shoes. He's like, no, I'm not doing it, man. And he just left. So now everybody's looking at me going, oh, Weezy, you got to do 2 laps. You got to do 2 naked laps. And I'm like, oh, fuck. And because I'm an honorable man, Brady, because I'm a man of my word, I go up into the house, I take off all my clothes, and I say to myself, just to be safe, right? Just to be safe, I'm going to wear my shoes because I don't want to be naked out there and barefoot because I got to haul ass. I got to do 2 laps around the house, right? So I go in there and I've got a Frankenstein mask, like, you know, for Halloween, you know, in my room. And I'm like, well, I'm putting the mask on just in case anything goes wrong out there, right? So I decide to leave the shoes on, and then I hike my socks up to my knees, and I got the Frankenstein mask on, and then I come tearing down the stairs in the house, and I go flying out there, and I'm going to do my 2 naked laps. And I'm fucking I'm hauling ass, Brady. And I go through the beach volleyball court. I go around the far side of the house, around front. I got cars honking at me as I'm running around there. And as I come around the sorority house the first time, right, which is where I'm going to be entering on the second naked lap, I'm good. But I'm also slowing down a little bit. You know, I'm high. I've already had a couple of beers at this point in the day. Second lap, I'm not quite as fast. And then all of a sudden, all the girls just left the Sigma Kappa house and went towards the Alpha Phi house. And as I'm rounding the far corner of my house, 1.5 out of the 2 naked laps done, there's 40 girls coming my way. And what they see is a 6'2", 210-pound dude hauling ass with gym shoes, socks up to his knees, and a Frankenstein mask on his head, dick flopping in the wind, right? And the look on their face as they saw me hauling ass towards them was the same look that was on my face as I was watching the tape on this horrible fighter, Tamires Vidal. So you know what? I'm not breaking down this fucking fight.
I couldn't have said it any better. But can you believe this line though? Like, in what world is Vidal a favorite? And in what world does she open up a minus
She's
two?
a favorite? I didn't even look at the line, dude.
She's a favorite. I don't know. Minus 155.
What's the line? I didn't even look.
It's minus 155. Like, oh my gosh.
So they think Vidal's winning this 6 out of 10 times, huh?
Yeah.
Oh my God, man. If I bet this fight 1 out of 10 times, I should wind up in jail.
Oh yeah. It's so bad, dude. But yeah, I would not recommend betting on this fight. I mean, this is one of the couple 1-800 gambler fights on the card. But yeah, great story, Weezy, and I agree. We can move on for sure. All right. We have Carlos Candelario going against Jake Hadley. We have Candelario. He is 31 years old, 5'8" with a 68-inch reach. Jake Hadley, he is 26 years old, 5'7" with a 70-inch reach. Hadley is 5 years younger. He's going to be at a 1-inch height disadvantage, and he's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage here. Candelario is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. He had the loss on the Contender Series against Victor Altamirano. Ultimately ended up getting a contract with the loss there. He made his debut against Tatsuro Taira, and he lost that fight by decision. He did fight on the Contender Series twice, actually. The first time was a pretty competitive fight against Candido, I believe it was. He won that fight by decision. Jake Hadley is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. He did make his debut, and he was a really big favorite against Alan Nascimento, and he lost that fight by decision. I thought it was a pretty good match for Jake Hadley there. Was kind of shocked that he lost that fight because Nascimento, you take a look at him, and he's a very good grappler. You know, he trains with Charles Oliveira, but, you know, on paper, Nascimento had like it was like a 10% takedown defense. Let me double check. It was a 16% takedown defense, and Hadley completed 0 takedowns in that fight. And then it's kind of the same thing here, whereas Candelario, he's a black belt in BJJ. I don't think he's the best grappler, but he is a black belt for what it's worth. His takedown defense is probably some of the worst takedown defense you'll ever see. On paper, it is 53%. Candido took him down 8 times. Altamirano took him down 4 times. Tatsuro Taira took him down as well. Tatsuro Taira knocked him down as well. I feel like this should be Hadley. It's just we are laying a very hefty price tag here. But I mean, this couldn't be any more set up for Hadley, I think, because you're taking a guy in Hadley who has very good grappling, very good wrestling, and then you're putting him against a guy with probably the worst takedown defense in the division. So I like Hadley here, but we'll talk about the price in a little bit. It's definitely a lot to pay for the guy.
It's a lot to pay, but I mean, I think everybody is seeing the exact same thing. You know, I mean, you sometimes you turn on these shows like ours, like Stat Diggers, in order to get somebody's opinion, you know, who sits in front of the TV and watches this shit all the time. But we see a lot of the same things, and that's that Candelario can't stop takedowns. He gives up a ton of control time. And the numbers here don't even tell the story because his Contender Series fight against Candido, we didn't have control time numbers for that. Candido got 8 takedowns and controlled him for probably 10 of the 15 minutes of that fight. That's not even included in there. So he's probably being controlled, Carlos Candelario, almost 50% of his UFC cage time if you were to find accurate control time numbers for the Candido fight. So, and then you got a guy in Hadley who's just a master of either getting takedowns and working his top game or just getting to your back and staying there and then finding the rear naked choke. That's his submission of choice. He gets rear naked chokes, and he gets to your back in order to do it. This is going to look almost exactly like the Tatsuro Taira fight, because Jake Hadley is a very, very similar fighter to Tatsuro Taira. They're both fantastic young prospects with solid, serviceable striking, excellent grappling, suffocating control time game, and a really good submission game. And I sometimes you want to not be lazy, Brady. You want to just be like, God, there should be some wrinkles. It can't just take place exactly like that fight. But I think anything else in your stretching, because if you're looking for reasons to like Candelario, I'm not even sure if Candelario's striking is any better than Hadley's. Hadley's got good, serviceable striking too. And we've seen Candelario dropped by somebody else who's a really good grappler, but with serviceable striking in Tatsuro Taira. So I'm exactly with you here, Brady. I'm breaking down the fight exactly the same way. This should be all Jake Hadley. And it's probably Jake Hadley by decision, because Candelario is a black belt and he's got great submission defense. So I do see this being a Jake Hadley decision. And in order to get that, minus 275 money line on Hadley down to something maybe a little more bettable, maybe we just clench our butt cheeks for 3 rounds and go with Hadley by decision and hope that it works out, and hope that Candelario's submission defense and durability holds up again, because the dude's never been finished, he's never been finished in his career.
Yeah, submission defense does look to be pretty solid. I mean, he does put himself into bad spots at times, but he's been able to work out of all of those bad spots thus far. But yeah, we'll take a look at the line here. We have Hadley opened up as a minus 250 favorite, currently minus 275. Candelario opened up plus 210, currently plus 235. I think he wins, Weezy, and I just can't lay this price tag on Hadley. In terms of the parlay thing, I mean, I think he could be a good parlay piece, but we were talking before the show, like, we expect this fight to go to decision, right?
I would say so. Yeah. I mean, I don't see Candelario as being much of a finisher up at this level. Yeah. And so, he's very durable too.
Yeah. So then we have to rely on those judges, right?
Oh, that's dude. You're right, man. You have to take that shit into consideration.
Yes. Ben Cartlidge go out there and score 30-27 for Candelario. I mean, so that's the only scary thing for me, but yeah, this should be Hadley. I guess he's a parlay piece. I don't know. I'm probably not going to have any parlays this week. But yeah, I guess he's a parlay piece for me, if anything.
Yeah, I mean, you could parlay him. I think the way that I'll try it is go for the decision prop, or maybe, if the over 2.5 opens at a reasonable price, maybe I'll take a shot at that. Yeah, this is a good fight. This is one of the better fights on the card, to be honest with you, because I think Hadley's a fantastic prospect, and Candelario is a guy who's always going to fight close with his opponents. He's got a good, well-rounded skill set. He's pretty good everywhere. He's good defensively, so you're not just going to finish this dude. So it should be a fun fight.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's a fun fight for sure. All right, we'll keep moving on. Though we have Johnny Munoz going against Ludovic Shayilan. We have Johnny Munoz, 29 years old, 5'9" with a 71-inch reach. Shayilan, 32 years old, 5'10" with a 71-inch reach. It's going to be Munoz, 3 years younger. It's going to be Shayilan with a 1-inch height advantage, same reach there. Munoz, he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights, a decision loss against Nate Maness. I kind of thought that was a draw there, going back and watching it today. Very close fight. Had that submission win against Jamie Simmons, and then that weird knockout loss against Tony Gravely. Ludovic Shayilan is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. He fought on the Ultimate Fighter. And I believe he went either 1-1 or 2. 1-1. I think he went 1-1. He lost to Ricky Tercios there. And then he made his debut against a very, very tough opponent in Jack Shore. I had a max bet on Jack Shore. I think I got him early, like minus 275, minus 260, something like that. Tough matchup, but this is going to be a much easier matchup. I kind of feel like this fight can play out close. Johnny Munoz, I like this guy a lot. This guy is a legit BJJ black belt. The guy's been grappling forever. He is an absolute wizard on the mat. I mean, he almost got Nate Maness out of there at the end of the first round. He can get submissions from on top, on bottom, just a very dangerous guy. And Ludovic Shayilan, he was on the Ukrainian national wrestling team. So very good wrestler, very good takedown defense, very strong, very good offensive wrestling. Just kind of an interesting fight where I feel like if this fight does play out on the feet, it's going to look a lot closer than this line does indicate. But if this fight hits the mat in any type of way, whether it's Shayilan taking the fight down to the mat, Or if Munoz is able to get that takedown, I think it's Munoz's world down there. But my only concern, especially when we're talking about this price tag, is if this fight does not hit the mat, what does it kind of look like there? Weezy, this is a really interesting fight here. I'm curious to your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, so like the measurables don't really mean a whole lot here. About the same height, same reach. Munoz just a little bit younger. And these guys have got really similar experience numbers. It's just Munoz a little bit more at the UFC level. The finish rates, Munoz, obviously, like you said, a fantastic Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu player, 82% finish rate as a pro. So that would be 9 of his 11 wins inside the distance, 7 by sub, 2 by knockout. And then he has been finished once by knockout in his career. That was to Gravely in his last time out. On the feet, I don't think either one of these guys are much good on the feet, but what Munoz does is he kind of just sells out for the grappling. Look at that, 20 takedown attempts in 23 minutes of cage time. And also he's given up the only takedown that has been shot on him. So 56% of his fights are taking place in control time positions for or against. Shayilan's been very efficient. 29.78% control time for, despite the fact that he hasn't completed a takedown, and 9.56% control time against, and he's been taken down twice. So the guy can obviously wrestle. When you look at the strength of schedule, the metrics overall are better for Shayilan here because he fought Jack Shore. Yuma Horiguchi is on his record. Got a win over Vince Cachero by split decision. So he's got some decent names on his resume. And Munoz is the same thing. I mean, Maness and Gravely are both good names, but they're both losses. So, this is the kind of spot. This is when I see fights like this, Brady. Where it's like, okay, I like Munoz here, and because he's the better grappler, and because neither one of them is a great striker. But then you look at the line, and what does the line say on Munoz?
Yeah, so Munoz is a -211 favorite.
Yeah, and I mean, this guy, you don't trust Johnny Munoz that way.
No.
You can't. He's a great grappler, and yeah, he can get shit into. But who's also a great grappler? Chase Hooper. Fantastic grappler. But when you're laying juice on an unproven fighter and you're making assumptions, that's a bad combination of things to do. When you do lay juice and make assumptions on unproven fighters, that is a storm to run into a dick saw, and it is not pleasant. And it happened to the Chase Hooper bettors last week. It could very well happen to the Munoz bettors this week because Shayilan's got a wrestling background, because he's got good grappling efficiency. If he keeps this fight standing and lands better strikes on the feet, he could win. But I don't think much of Shayilan at this level. I don't think he's really going to win any fights at the UFC level. So, it's a massive stay away from me, Brady. I mean, this is a 1-800-GAMBLER fight for me. I don't know what you guys in the chat think. I don't know what you think here, but this is a stay away from me.
Yeah, well, I mean, when I broke down the fight, I kind of saw it as a very close fight where if this fight does hit the mat, you got to favor Munoz. I mean, the guy's really good on the mat. It's just the wrestling background of Shayilan does scare me a bit. Like if Munoz is not able to get this fight down to the mat, if this does play out on the feet, what does it look like? I can tell you right now, he's not looking -210 on the feet. I feel like it's going to be very close and probably a really bad fight if it does play out on the feet. But yeah, I'm with you. I do like Munoz, but it's just the price tag, man. I mean, opened up -200, currently -111. Shayilan opened up +170, currently +181. Nothing really sticking out. I think it's a pass, maybe even a dogger pass. Don't really like any time props as well. Yeah, I'm with you. Pretty much a 1-800-GAMBLER as well for me.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And there's really not a whole lot in the stats here. I mean, obviously, Munoz only 20% takedown accuracy is not the kind of thing where, that's another thing. I mean, like 20%. He couldn't get Maness down at all, and he just stuck to him. And the way the judges are going, you can win 4 minutes and 30 seconds of control time on the fence, absorb one big shot on the feet. You're going to lose that round because they really are looking at damage. So, well, at least they are when I've got a guy that's outpointing somebody.
Yeah.
But, still, yeah, it's don't do it. I don't think it's a good idea to lay that kind of juice or parlay up Munoz this week. It's a lower level fight. And you're making a lot of assumptions.
Yeah, I agree. All right, Weezy, speaking of 1-800-GAMBLER fights, how about we transition to another 1-800-GAMBLER fight? We have Jinh Fraud going against Polyana Viana. We have Viana, who is 30 years old, 5'5" with a 67-inch reach. Jinh Fraud, 37 years old, 5'3" with a 65-inch reach. Viana, 7 years younger. Viana with a 2-inch height advantage, and Viana with a 2-inch reach advantage. Viana is 2-3 in her last 5 fights, a decision loss to Hannah Cifers. I'll repeat that. A decision loss to Hannah Cifers, a submission loss to Veronica Macedo, a submission win over Emily Schipmeyer, a submission win over Mallory Martin, and then a decision loss to Tabitha Ricci. As far as Jinh Fraud, she is 2-3 in her last 5 fights, a submission loss to Kay Hansen, a decision loss to the very handsome Luma Lukbumi, a decision win against Gloria DePaula, a decision win against Ashley Yoder, and the decision loss against Vanessa Demopoulos. I mean, right back to the giant douche and turd sandwich analysis here. I mean, we got to pick one. And honestly, like, it's about a pick 'em line here, but I thought the last fight for Frey was a very, very poor look against Vanessa Demopoulos, where, you know, she was able to stuff the takedowns there. But on the feet, like, Demopoulos was having success there, and that scares me a bit. Viana, she's much younger. Viana is very dangerous on the mat. I mean, that's her game. If Viana is able to get this down to the mat, I think she taps out. Jinh Fraud has been submitted, I think, a couple times. Obviously, a 1-800-GAMBLER fight. This is a fight that I retired from betting on these fights, but it's Viana for me. But yeah, I'm not touching this fight. Weezy, any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, so Viana, taller, 2-inch reach advantage, much younger. You like all that. Jinh Fraud is southpaw versus orthodox matchup here. So the power strikes from both ladies, neither one of them has ever landed a knockdown. 12 combined fights, over 400 combined significant strikes landed. Neither one of these ladies has ever landed a knockdown. So Frey, much more experience, even though she's only got one more pro fight. She's got over 140 more minutes in the pro cage. And even though she's got 2 less fights than Viana, she's got 17 more minutes in the UFC cage in comparison to Viana. Viana, the much better finisher, obviously. 100% finish rate in her 12 wins. She's looking for submissions. And we've seen Jinh Fraud get submitted at the UFC level by 1K Hansen. She's also been knocked out twice in her career. But her only UFC loss that was inside the distance was by submission. Polyana has also been submitted. The striking numbers look much better for Viana than they do for Frey, because Viana's got a positive significant strike differential, about 0.5, and Jinh Fraud's is negative 1.01. So, and Jinh Fraud's pretty low volume too. She throws less volume than her opponents, while Viana throws more. And I just think the more submission, the more dangerous submission grappler on the ground is Polyana Viana. But Polyana is a terrible minute winner, you know, because she gives up so much time on her back just hunting for that submission. She's 100%, you know, dependent on the submission. I mean, think about this. When fights go to decision, Polyana Viana in her career is 0-4. So, you know, I guess, you know, there could be interesting stylistic ways to look at this fight. Perhaps like a Jinh Fraud decision-only prop, right, Brady? Because you're saying maybe Jinh Fraud wins the minutes because Viana's not a great minute winner on the feet, and she's certainly not on the ground. We can't really count on her to get a lot of wrestling or control time. 7% control time, only 3 takedowns in 7 fights for Polyana Viana. So, and then if you look at the strength of schedule, it's almost identical. They're both beating trash opponents for the most part, and they lose to trash opponents too. 0.63 ratio for Viana, 0.6 for Jinh Fraud. Yeah, man, we're kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel here. I would say Jinh Fraud by decision, and I think that maybe Polyana Viana by submission might not be a bad play either. There are interesting prop angle ways to attack this, but I mean, it really is kind of another 1-800-GAMBLER fight. But I think if you dig into the stats enough, you can find ways for degenerate plays here.
Yeah, I mean, if they mess up the finish only line, I mean, it's something you got to take advantage of. Viana's finished all of her wins, 100% finish rate, and Jinh Fraud has the worst finish rate on the entire card. And then on top of that, Frey's been finished 3 times. Viana's never been knocked out. So yeah, I think the finish only for Viana, if they mess it up, that's something I'm going to be looking at. But it looks like money's coming in on Viana at this point. It is no longer a pick 'em. Viana opened up -140, went to around like -110. It was hanging there +100 for a couple weeks or a week or so. And then now she's back down to -128. And it looks like Jinh Frey is now +108. So money coming in on Viana as of late. I'm picking her to win. And then, like I said, that finish only will be something I'm keeping an eye on. But if they price it correctly, kind of like they priced the De Lima finish only correctly last week, it was like -400. They're all over it. If they mess it up, put it at like -150, something like that, I'll probably take a look at it.
Yeah, that's a great way. The finish only for Viana, the decision only for Frey. Jinh Frey by decision could be an interesting prop, but yeah, it's pretty low level here, and neither one of them is great at winning minutes or, sticking to a game plan that helps them win fights. So I don't know, man. It's a rough one.
Yep, I agree. All right. Let us move on to the next fight. I'm really looking forward to this fight, Weezy. We have the return of Benito Lopez. Benito Lopez, where have you been? It has been like over 3 years since we've seen Benito Lopez. And I remember his last fight because I was actually on a cruise watching it live, and that cruise was like over 3 years ago. So he's back. He's back, and this is such a fun fight. I think these guys are going to go to war here. You have Benito Lopez. He's 28 years old, 5'10" with a 73-inch reach. Going against Batista, 29 years old, 5'9" with a 69-inch reach. Benito Lopez, 1 year younger. It's going to be Lopez with a 1-inch height advantage and a 4-inch reach advantage. Mario Batista is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. A decision win against Jin Soo Sun, a knockout win against Miles Johns, knockout loss to Trevin Jones, decision win against Jay Perrin, and then a submission win against Brian Kelleher. As far as Benito Lopez, he had a decision win against Steven Peterson, a decision win against Albert Morales, a submission loss to Manny Bermudez, and then a decision win against Vince Morales. And I want to go and see the exact date. So the last time we saw Benito Lopez was 3 years and 2 months ago. And I saw Lopez was on this card, and I'm like, man, what has Lopez been up to? And come to find, Weezy, I told you about this, Benito Lopez is a realtor. Benito Lopez is a realtor. And once I saw that, I was thinking max bet Mario Batista, because we know realtors in the UFC have not been doing well. Have they, Weezy? I think like 0-1. It was at Almeida.
Yeah, and I mean, Iaquinta is he's 10 times the realtor that Benito Lopez will ever fucking be. I mean, you want to know what it takes to be number 1 on Long Island? Go ask Al Iaquinta. He can fucking tell you, because he is number 1 in Long Island. So, I mean, come on, man. Benito Lopez, 3 years off, at EXP Realty, which I think is kind of like a slip shot operation. I'm not sure, Brady, oh, God, it's a bad look, dude. But at least his hair isn't that fucking half blonde, half black anymore.
Oh, my gosh, man. That was bad. That haircut was bad. But
nobody's buying a house from a guy with a haircut like that. So he had to go back natural again. And God bless him for doing it.
God bless him indeed. But, yeah, I saw that. He has a family now. The guy's not looking in the best shape. I'm curious to see him at weigh-ins, because he does not look in the best shape. But I don't know, man. This is weird. Like, we have not seen him in a while, and I don't know what to think of this fight. I mean, I think it's going to be a fun fight. One spot I'm really looking at in this fight is the violence. I think violence is going to be very sneaky here, just because neither guy has ever lost by decision. Batista has been finished in both of his losses, one by knockout, one by sub. And then we see that Lopez has been finished by sub in his only loss. So I'm kind of thinking violence here. I'm thinking Mario Batista as well. I really like how Batista's been looking as of late, training at MMA Lab, training with great guys. The guys looked very, very impressive to me. So that this is clearly Batista, but there's a lot of question marks. Like, what has Benito Lopez been up to outside of becoming a realtor? What's he going to look like after this layoff? Has he made improvements? Has he not? Is he showing up for a paycheck? Just a very weird fight here, Weezy.
It really is. I'm surprised. I'm really surprised that they made this fight, because you know what? Bautista's on a roll. He went through Kelleher so fast, and Kelleher is such a good veteran. He's He's been around. He's seen some of the better fighters in the UFC. Nobody has went through Keller like that except for Umar Nurmagomedov, and then, very impressive performance against Jay Perrin. Got knocked out by Trevin Jones, but that's happened to a couple different people who were beating the shit out of Jones. Miles Johns, Jinsu's son. And these wins for Benito Lopez could have easily been losses. I don't know if the alpha male guys were handing, big bags to the judges in all those fights, but I mean, you could have scored any of those Benito Lopez fights for the other guy, if I'm not mistaken. So 3-year layoff. And then one thing I looked at too, Brady, was I was like, all right, how many fights were canceled, right? Dude, none. 3 years off. He hasn't even had a fight scheduled. And then you're gonna come in off of that 3-year layoff and fight Bautista. I think Bautista is like, I was gonna say a sure thing. You just never say shit like that, and shame on me for even like almost getting to my lips.
Weezy, if Benito Lopez shows up with that shit haircut, then you can say it's a sure thing. But if not, then you're right. I agree with you. All depends.
I mean, dude, even when you look at the strength of schedule, Brady, look at Benito Lopez with a 0.69 ratio and Bautista with a 1.33. And then look at Bautista in his wins. Much better ratio, 1.17 to 0.64 for Lopez. And like I say, the wins over Albert Morales, Vince Morales, Steven Peterson, all razor close fights that could have went either way. You just got to think that Bautista is going to kill this kid.
That's what you think, right? But you take a look at the line, and that's where I'm like, what's going on? I mean, does somebody know something that we don't know? Like, is Bautista coming in here with a dislocated shoulder that's going to pop out in 30 seconds into the fight? Because Bautista's only minus like 225, minus 235 here.
What for Johnny Munoz Jr.?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's, man.
So
I don't know, dude. That's bizarre to me. That's bizarre to me how someone like Lopez, who, wasn't exactly showing out in his prior UFC performances, there was nothing there where you were like, wow, this kid, is special. He's a good striker who keeps fight standing and, wins as many minutes as he loses, wins as many exchanges as he loses against guys like Vince Morales, Albert Morales, and Steven Ocho Peterson, not exactly known for being fantastic strikers.
Yeah, and that was a very bad decision 3 years ago against Vince Morales. I thought Vince clearly got that one. So that was bad. But yeah, I mean, I like Bautista here a lot. I mean, 3-year layoff for Lopez. Cage rust. What's he been doing lately? Looks like he became a realtor. Whereas, Bautista, who's just leveling up each and every time, training with killers. So, I like Bautista a lot here, and I like the fight doesn't go. I think these two are going to go to war. But I don't mind Bautista at that price tag at all. And it's weird to me, like money's coming in on Lopez. It looks like on DraftKings Sportsbook, he went from plus 205 to plus 200 to plus 195 to plus 190. Like, is the alpha male fix in? Because that's the only thing I can think of for this one.
Yeah, dude, maybe Uriah already shipped the bag to our guy Cartilage, and maybe Adelaide Bird, just got a new Fendi bag or some shit. I don't know, man. That could be the case. Nothing surprises me anymore. And we were just talking before we went on about how it's like you almost feel like you can't lay juice anymore because it just seems like something goes wrong every damn time you lay juice. So it's like if at least you're betting the plus money side, at least you were getting plus money if you get screwed, But when you're laying 2-3 units to win one, and then the judges come in with some trash goes the other way, it's tough to swallow.
Yeah, man, it's terrifying. It's terrifying. But I do like Bautista a lot there. So we'll see what happens in that one. Should be a fun fight nonetheless. If Lopez shows up and makes weight, I'm curious to see him at the weigh-ins there. All right, we have the next fight here. We have Miranda Maverick going against Shanna Young. We got Maverick, 25 years old, 5'3" with a 65-inch reach. Shanna Young, 31 years old, 5'7" with a 65-inch reach. We have Maverick 3-2 in her last 5 fights, a knockout win against Luana Jojua, a decision win against Jillian Robertson, decision loss against Macy Barber, a decision loss against Aaron Blanchfield, and a submission win against Sabina Mazo. Shanna Young, she is 2-3 in her last 5 fights. She had a submission loss to Sarah Alpar on the Contender Series a couple years back. She made her debut against Macy Chiasson, I believe it was, lost by decision. She lost by knockout to Stephanie Egger, and then she knocked out Gina Mazzani. I was on the wrong side of that one. I think that was the fight where I finally was like, yeah, I'm done betting this horse shit. And I think that's when I officially retired from betting on shit fights like Gina Mazzani, Shanna Young. So lesson learned there. But yeah, good win for Shanna Young. There was able to kind of weather the early storm, take over, and finish it gassed out Gina Mazzani. Yeah, not much to say here, Weezy. We already broke this down a couple months ago. Shanna Young pulled out due to sickness, bad weight cut. I think it was because, why would she take? I mean, it's a tough fight. And we see the line here, Miranda Maverick, she was like minus 500 yesterday. And now she's like approaching like minus 700. She's going to be a very popular parlay piece, which you don't really want to be parlaying minus 700 women's MMA favorites, but you got to think Maverick kind of runs through it here. This is actually a rematch, believe it or not. Maverick was able to take down Young in the first fight, take her back, and choke her out fairly easy. I did have a bet on this fight as well. I had Maverick inside the distance at plus money. If I get that plus money again, I'll probably take a look. It kind of reminds me of the Christian Rodriguez fight last week, where Rodriguez was a huge favorite in that inside the distance, was just sitting at plus money for some reason. Shanna Young's been finished quite a few times. Miranda Maverick's going to have a pretty significant advantage on the mat. So yeah, if Maverick inside the distance for some reason is plus money again, I'll be betting that. But if not, I'm not laying chalk on an inside the distance prop in a women's fight at 125 pounds. And I'm not laying minus 700 on Miranda Maverick, but she should go out here and shave the ass of Shanna Young.
Yeah, she's already done it once. I mean, so why not again? And yeah, you can try to find reasons here to like Young, to like Young, because you can then get plus 500. And if there is one reason, she actually dropped Miranda Maverick in their first fight. But then right when that happened, Maverick panic wrestled. And then from there, it was just literally about 2 minutes from takedown to advance to back take to rear naked choke. So it was easy for Miranda. And Miranda's a finisher. 2 of 3 UFC wins inside the distance, 7 of 10 pro wins inside the distance. And Shanna has been finishing 2 of her 4 pro losses and in 2 of her 3 UFC losses. So maybe the way to play this is to bet Maverick inside the distance. But then when you're doing that, you're about getting 50-50. And now she's got to finish her inside the distance in order for that to pay off. So it's one of those fights. This is one of the ones I was talking about, Brady, where it's an obvious result, but there's no way to bet it to where if there is a banana peel event, that you won't like want to trash your TV like you did after watching Tamires Vidal tape, and who could blame you? So it just kind of feels like another massive stay away. But I'm hoping that Shanna Young has something for Miranda and makes this a fun fight, and maybe surprises us a little bit with some improvements that she's made. She's got a wrestling background. She's got okay striking, It's not like Miranda Maverick has the best striking in the division. So it could be interesting. I'm hoping like Maverick goes to like minus 1,200, and then I'll be like, fuck it. Plus 750. I'm hoping that she goes out there, pulls a Calvin Cater on a jump knee and blows out her knee. It could happen. It could fucking happen, dude. So anything can happen. It's a fight. Yeah. So yeah, I'm picking Maverick. I think she probably gets it done inside the distance by submission or ground and pound. But, I just don't see a way to bet it where I wouldn't be, just laying way too much juice.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to be laying minus. I mean, it could be like a Chase Hooper situation. I mean, that could happen as well. But yeah, Maverick should roll here in all honesty. She opened up minus 300. She's currently minus 650. And I probably do expect that to keep getting wider. Shanna Young opened up plus 250, currently plus 475. And I think we both agree Maverick does get it done, and probably inside the distance. All right, next we'll move on to a fight that I'm really looking forward to. We have Shayilan and Nuerdanbieke going against Darrick Minner. We have Nuerdanbieke, who is 28 years old, 5'8" with a 69-inch reach, going against Darrick Minner, 32 years old, 5'10" with a 71-inch reach. Shayilan, 4 years younger. It's going to be Minner with a 2-inch reach advantage and a 2-inch height advantage. Darrick Minner made his debut against TJ Laramie. He was a huge dog in that matchup, and I think my dumbass parlayed TJ Laramie with something that night, and then he submitted Laramie in like a minute. He made his debut actually against Grant Dawson, lost that by submission. Then he bounces back and gets the submission win over Laramie. And then he beats Charles Rosa by decision. He gets knocked out by Darren Elkins, and then he loses a decision to Ryan Hall. Shayilan, Nuerdanbieke, he is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. He made his debut against Josh Kulabau, lost by decision, and then won a decision against Sean Soriano and TJ Brown as well. So, yeah, this is a very intriguing stylistic matchup because we have a very good wrestler, solid grappler in Nuerdanbieke going against just a very, very dangerous guy in Darrick Minner. Darrick Minner has a ton of submissions on his record. Like, all he does is go out there and submit people. And it's not like he's going out there and submitting a lot of bums. I mean, some of them are bums, but he has wins over guys like Terrence McKinney, submitted Terrence McKinney. He has wins over TJ Laramie, guys like that. And the guy has, let me see the exact number, 22 submission wins for Darrick Minner. And he's dangerous. He has so many different submissions on his record as well. So I went and watched a lot of fights of Shayilan. Like, there's a lot to choose from. The guy has 48 fights. And I watched at least 5 fights where he's just tapping. And most importantly, he's tapping to complete bums. Like, he's tapping to guys with 0-1 records. And he's tapping quickly. Sometimes these chokes aren't even sunk in all the way, and he's tapping. And I will say his submission defense did look pretty good against TJ Brown, but Darrick Minner is very, very dangerous. And even TJ Brown was close a couple times in terms of getting him out of there, had him in a couple deep submissions there. So, yeah, I think Shayilan's going to try to get this down to the mat. And when he does, that's Darrick Minner's world. If people shoot on Darrick Minner, he had Grant Dawson in a lot of trouble in the first round. He was very close to submitting Grant Dawson. So I like the dog here in Darrick Minner. I like violence as well. Darrick Minner is a killer be killed fighter with a 88% finish rate, and he's been finished in 11 losses. Whereas you can kind of say the same thing about Shayilan. His finishing ability hasn't really translated in the UFC, but outside the UFC, the guy has 18 knockout wins, 10 submission wins, and then he's also been finished 8 times, including 6 submission wins. So, and I do think we'll get a plus money, and the fight doesn't get the decision here because Darrick Minner went to decision in his last fight, and Shayilan's been to decision in all 3 of his fights. So I'm looking at that fight doesn't go at plus money. And I also don't mind some Darrick Minner. I think he's going to have a ton of opportunities. And if they mess up the Darrick Minner by submission prop, I will be jumping on that as well, because that is literally his path to victory. I think that submission is very live here. And at the very worst, you're going to get several opportunities to get that submission win. So I like Minner here as a pretty decent sized dog, Weezy. Not really sure why the line's where it's at.
Yeah, I mean, Shayilan's look good, man. This is grappler versus grappler, but it's 2 completely different kind of grapplers. You got the control time lay and pray grappler in Shayilan, and then you've got the incredibly active submission grappler in Minner from the top, from the bottom. It doesn't matter, man. He's arm bars, triangles, guillotines, rear naked chokes, front chokes, leg locks. I mean, calf slicers, banana splits, go-go platas. I mean, dude, he will chain submission to submission to submission. He's averaging 2.77 submission attempts per 15 minutes and 2.46 takedowns per 15 minutes. So I think that this fight definitely goes to the grappling. If we look at the grappling numbers here, Shayilan, 47% control time for, 10.5% control time against. So, almost 60% of his fights taking place in control time positions. For Minner, it's 78%. So this fight's going to the grappling, and Minner's just going to throw up subs, and he doesn't need to get a takedown. He'll fucking pull guard. He'll try to take your back standing. Doesn't matter. There's no way I would fucking lay this kind of juice on Shayilan. I don't think he's very good, man. And I think if he sees a submission grappler, the level of Darrick Minner, then Minner's going to tap him like a typewriter, and it's going to be over quickly. I'm going to be looking for a first-round sub prop for Darrick Minner. He's plus money. If one of these guys screw up the sub prop and put it out at plus 400 or better, I might throw a full unit on it.
Why not?
Try to hit a home run, because I know for a fact that even if it doesn't hit, there's going to be 3 or 4 different times in that first round where I'm going to be this close. And Shayilan, not good. He's been submitted 6 times in his career by guys who wouldn't last 3 minutes on a mat with Darrick Minner. So I like Minner here a lot.
Yeah, I like Minter too, and I like Violence. Guess how many finishes these guys have combined? Like it's an insane number.
Oh, dude, yeah. I mean, like Shayilan's got 48 fights. And he's got almost like a 75% finish rate. So, yeah, you're going to have to tell me. It's got to be a massive number because it's 89% finish rate from Minter in his wins, and he's getting his ass shaved in almost every loss.
Yeah, it's 60 finishes in their fight.
60 finishes in 87 fights. That's crazy.
Yeah, let me do the math on that. So 60. How many fights?
87. So I got 69%.
69%. That's not bad. Yeah, that's why I'm looking at that fight doesn't go for plus money, hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah, man. It's a great spot. And Minter's exactly the kind of fighter you want to be betting for Violence. Every once in a while, it doesn't happen. But, you know, Charles Rosa, which is the fight that went to decision that shocked the shit out of everybody, nobody finishes Charles Rosa. Nobody. So it was actually, you know, that was actually a spot that was pretty good to be on the other side because you knew you could count on the durability of both fighters, really. But, yeah, this is one of the more interesting bettable spots on the card, in my opinion, because Darrick Minter brings Violence, and the trends lead me to believe we might get affordably priced Violence when it opens.
Yep, I agree. That is one spot that really jumped off the page to me. We got our guy Wiz in the chat with the $4.99. Appreciate you, Wiz. He's saying 1 unit equals 1 mushroom lunch. Yes, sir. We are now our unit sizes are now in terms of mushroom lunches. So, for example, if I want to put a unit on the fight doesn't go to decision, I will therefore put 1 mushroom lunch on the fight doesn't go to decision. Just makes it easier for everybody. But yeah, shout out to Wiz, shout out to Mushroom in the chat as well. He's saying, appreciate the hard work you gentlemen put in as always. Thank you so much, Wiz. Thank you for the dono, and thank you for hanging out. All right, let us keep moving on. Here we have, all right, yes, Maxim Grishin going against Jailton Almeida. We got Grishin, 38 years old, 6'3" with a 78-inch reach. Almeida, 31 years old, 6'3" with a 79-inch reach. And I do want to double check. Weezy, do you know if this is at catchweight or is it actually at heavyweight?
I've got the Pathology page up here, so let's have a look-see. They're calling it heavyweight, actually. They're not even calling it catchweight. Okay. They're calling it 265 on Tapology, and I'll check UFC stats while you talk.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. But yeah, this should be kind of like the Maverick fight. I mean, we have a huge favorite on Almeida, and the line's only going to get wider and wider as the week kind of goes on here. I mean, I've been having a lot of success, Weezy, just betting, just spam betting the under 1.5 rounds for Almeida, and like they're pricing it at a reasonable price each and every time. Just this under 1.5 just keeps on hitting. The reason I like this under 1.5 is Jailton Almeida, in all of his wins, all 17 of them have came under 1.5 rounds. So it's another spot where if they mess up the line once again, I'll probably take the under. But yeah, outside of that, I just don't really see a way to bet this fight. Almeida is a massive favorite. Grishin, he's not even a bad fighter as well. I think Grishin's getting a little bit disrespected, but I think it's more so a lot of hype on Jailton Almeida. The guys look completely lights out, and I think he does rack up another finisher and win. And when you look at it, Grishin has been finished quite a few times, and he's been finished by some pretty good guys. But yeah, Grishin has been finished 6 times, so another kind of red flag there. No hot take for me. I like Almeida. Probably in the first round. If it does get extended, you know, we'll have to see what happens. We have not seen Almeida extended. The one time he did get extended, he lost that fight. But I do expect Almeida to get this done under 1.5 rounds. So that's a spot I'm looking at. I'm assuming the bookies are going to finally catch on and be wise to it. Almeida's only done it 17 times, but if they put in anywhere near even money, I'll be taking a shot. But yeah, Almeida should smash here, Weezy.
He should. He's an incredible talent, a suffocating grappler. You know, like a physical specimen, unlike to the likes of which you just don't see every day, even covering this kind of a sport. Jailton Almeida is in the top 1% in terms of physique and just how intimidating he looks when he gets into that cage. And Grishin has been finishing 6 of his 9 pro losses. That's a huge red flag against a guy in Jailton who's so dominant. How dominant, you ask, Uncle Weezy? How about absorbing 8 significant strikes in 4 UFC fights. You know, I mean, if you land 3 significant strikes on Almeida in an entire fight, you're above average. You know, that's how hard it is to have any kind of success against this guy. How about 79.52% control time for and 12% control time against? So this guy is in control time positions about 91% of his UFC cage time of 18.8 minutes. I mean, that's a terrifying percentage. It means that, you've got about 1 out of 10 seconds standing against this guy where maybe you have a chance to land a big shot, because if you don't, he's strong enough to pick you up, throw you down, and he's strong enough to keep you there. And he's adept enough at his BJJ to advance position, look for submissions, finish fights early. What would happen if Almeida went past 7.5 minutes? I think Grishin would be live. I'm still waiting to see somebody get out of the fucking first round with this guy, because, we could see an adrenaline dump. We could see that somebody like that comes in as hot and as dominant as Almeida does might not be able to carry that pace for a full 15 minutes. Is Grishin the guy to last on the ground with him? I mean, I don't even know, dude. I mean, he's faced 21 takedown attempts in 4 fights. He's yielded 7 of them, but he's never had a submission attempt attempted against him. And he's given up 28% control time. That's not great. He's fairly efficient, but still, people have had success getting him down, holding him down, and that's what Almeida does well. This really should be Almeida all day. And then if you want to hedge a little bit, you could take Grishin and over 1.5 rounds, because if it gets past 7.5 minutes and he's still alive, he could potentially land a big shot and end the fight. But yeah, I mean, it should be Almeida, the under 1.5. Get it when it opens, because a couple hours after it opens, it'll probably be unbettable, too juiced.
Yeah, for sure. And Jose in the chat saying that is not the last 5 fights for Grishin. I believe that's the handsome Shamil's last 5 fights.
Right? Oh, you know what? Because Jailton was supposed to fight Shamil. That's my bad. So I didn't update the last 5. So yeah, that's wrong. That's what happens when you got your Uncle Weezy manually updating the stats. Every once in a while there's going to be an error. But yeah, I've got Grishin in the place of where Shamil was, but everything else is accurate.
So want to hear something funny?
What's that?
In the Almeida Turcali fight, they opened up the under 1.5 rounds at plus 145.
Wow.
And then it went immediately to plus 105, and then it closed at minus 185.
Woo!
Yeah, plus 145. Yeah. Goodness.
Plus 145 is on brand for how they finish inside the distance at that division, So sometimes that's just how they open these things. They don't, and a guy like Grishin has been over 1.5 rounds. As a matter of fact, I've got it on my sheet. Let's see what Grishin has went in his time.
Probably every time, right?
Over 2.5, 75% of the time, and over 1.5, 100% of the time. He didn't even get Antigulov out of there in 1.5 rounds. So, we might get a bettable number here, and that's just like a de facto, Almeida under 1.5 bet. But it also includes, the fact that maybe Grishin lands a big shot while he's coming in and sleeps him. So the under 1.5 probably the best way to play this fight.
Yep, we will see what that opens up at hopefully tomorrow. But we'll move on to the next fight. We have a fight that kind of a short notice replacement here for Grant Dawson, or Grant Dawson is stepping in on short notice, going against Mark Madsen. Madsen, 38 years old, 5'8" with a 72-inch reach. Dawson, 28 years old, 5'10" with a 72-inch reach. Dawson, 10 years younger. Dawson with a 2-inch height advantage. Mark Madsen is 5-0 in his last 5 fights. A knockout win against Danilo Belluardo, a decision win against Austin Hubbard, a decision win against Clay Guida, and a decision win against Vince Pichel. Grant Dawson, 4-0 and 1 draw in his last 5 fights, a submission win against Darrick Minner, a decision win against Nad Narimani, a knockout win against Leonardo Santos, a draw against Ricky Glenn, and then a submission win against Jared Gordon. We have 2 very good wrestlers here, Weezy. Very good grappler, Grant Dawson. Grant Dawson's only 28 years old. He started to train at AT&T. I think we're going to see a lot of improvements from the guy. But, yeah, Mark Madsen's no joke. 12 fights, undefeated. I think this is a very interesting matchup here.
Very interesting matchup. There's no doubt about it. I mean, Madsen, a fantastic Greco-Roman wrestler, Olympic silver medalist, great takedowns of his own, great control time. Grant Dawson, a guy just a master of taking your back. And he is a suffocating grappler. 72 takedown attempts in 8 UFC fights. 25 of them he's gotten. 55% control time for, 9% control time against, averaging 3.97 takedown attempts for 15 minutes and 1.43 submission attempts for 15 minutes. So you look at, Madsen versus Dawson on the wrestling, right? Madsen 66% takedown accuracy, Dawson 35. Madsen 3.9 takedowns for 15 minutes, Dawson 3.97. Madsen 0 submission attempts for 15 minutes, Dawson 1.43. So it tells you that once the fight is on the ground, Dawson's much more dangerous. He is a great submission grappler, a great back taker. And even though both of these guys are getting the same amount of takedowns per 15 minutes, we can see a big difference in how they control their opponents, as Dawson about 55% control time and Madsen about 32% control time. So the question is Mark Madsen prepared to keep Grant Dawson from getting his back? If you told me Grant Dawson never gets Mark Madsen's back in this fight, I'm betting Mark Madsen is an underdog without question, with no hesitation at all. But I think that the probability that Dawson doesn't get on this dude's back at least once is very, very low. He's really, really adept at getting to those advantageous positions against his opponent. In the striking, I think Madsen's the way better striker. Grant Dawson has never had good striking. You don't attempt 72 takedowns in 8 fights if you're confident in your striking. And plus, he's never landed a knockdown. He's got 45% striking defense. This is not a guy that if you're betting on Grant Dawson, you're pissed off when he's standing. You want him in those grappling exchanges. So I think that it's a tough one, man, because Dawson's got the better strength to schedule on the ratio, but Madsen's fighting the more experienced competition. The wins are much better in the ratio for Grant Dawson. Once again, Madsen's more experienced competition, and neither of these guys have tasted defeat at the UFC level. But Dawson's been close a couple of times in the Glenn fight and in the Leonardo Santos fight. I think maybe if he doesn't get that knockout at the end of the Santos fight with 1 second left, that he might lose that fight. And like you said, man, Darrick Minner had him in some bad spots. And Dawson's taking this fight on short notice because Madsen was supposed to be fighting Drakkar Klose, another pressure fighter who wrestles a lot, who tries to get on people's backs. But Dawson does it better than Klose does. I think Grant Dawson's probably going to win this fight, but the bet for me would probably be Mark Madsen. I don't think Grant Dawson's finishing Madsen. If he does win, I think Dawson probably wins by decision. But the guy's got a crazy finish rate. 6 of his 7 UFC wins inside the distance. A really special finisher at this level.
Yeah, I think this is one of those fights where I'm just going to sit back and watch it. I think it's probably one of the better fights on the entire card. We take a look at the line. Dawson opened up minus 150, currently minus 223. Madsen opened up plus 130, currently plus 188. I think we're disrespecting Madsen a little bit, man. I mean, like minus 223 for Dawson. I could see this playing out a lot closer than that.
Yeah, you know what? I think my stats are wrong. I've got 2 decision wins for Grant Dawson here, but I'm showing 5 of his 7 or 6 of his 7 wins inside the distance. Oh no, it is right. It is right, 71%. But it's showing the wrong amount overall here because it's got it at like 99%. So I got to fix that. But yeah, it's a great fight. This is easily one of the best fights on the card. Might be the best fight on the card because these guys are very well matched. Great grappler versus grappler matchup. But I think Madsen is the minute winner on the feet here. And like I say, if he can keep Grant Dawson off his back, he's going to be very live to win this fight.
Yep, absolutely. Going to be a fun one to watch, but from a betting perspective, just don't really have much interest myself. All right, we'll move on to the next fight. We have Tagir Ulanbekov going against Nate Maness. We got Ulanbekov, 31 years old, 5'7" with a 70-inch reach. Nate Maness, 31 years old, 5'10" with a 72-inch reach. We have Maness with a 3-inch height advantage and a 2-inch reach advantage. Tagir Ulanbekov is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. He made his debut, I believe it was against Bruno Silva, won that fight by decision. Won by decision against Alan Nascimento. Lost the decision to Tim Elliott his last time out. Nate Maness, 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Made his debut against Johnny Munoz, won that by decision. Submitted Luke Sanders, knocked out Tony Gravely, and then lost a decision to Umar Nurmagomedov. Weezy, I think I'm retired from betting on Maness fights. Like, I've done nothing but lose money on this guy's fights. Remember, Johnny Munoz came in. I was super high on Munoz on DraftKings. It's where they kind of messed up the prices a little bit. Both guys were like around 7K. Was really high on Munoz, and he went out there and beat Munoz. Close fight or not, he still got the win. Against Luke Sanders, I believe I had a bet on Luke Sanders. Luke Sanders was looking phenomenal, winning the fight, and then he gets clipped, and then he gets subbed, typical Luke Sanders fashion there. And then Tony Gravely, I was very confident in Tony Gravely. Tony Gravely's looking phenomenal. He knocks out Nate Maness at the end of the first round. Nate Maness comes back to life and finishes Tony Gravely in the second round. And then in the last fight against Umar Nurmagomedov, I bet the under 2.5 rounds, and that shit the bet as well. I've been doing nothing but just donating money in these Nate Maness fights. So I'm probably going to stay away, but I feel like this fight could play out close. I think Nate Maness is a very underrated fighter. He's super tough, very, very strong guy, very good takedown defense. And if he can keep this on the feet, I think it's going to be very interesting. But yeah, this is another one of those fights where I'm just sick of losing money on this guy's fights. I just can't get anything right. So yeah, I don't know. Curious to hear your thoughts on this one, and curious to hear if anything sticks out to you on this one as well.
Yeah, Nate, taller, longer. You like that? The experience numbers very similar at the UFC and pro level for these guys. Nate, the better finisher at the UFC level. Both of these guys are pretty durable. Nate has been knocked out once. But that could happen. But either way, Ulanbekov has never been finished. But this is going to be about whether, Tagir can get takedowns, obviously. Nate has been controlled for 53% of his 44 minutes in the UFC cage, and Tagir is getting his takedowns at a 42% clip. He's averaging 3.67 takedowns per 15 minutes, and he's getting 46% control time and yielding 7.74% control time. So with Nate Maness, you see an opponent who is getting 5% control time and allowing 53% control time. So that's the exact type of archetype of fighter that Tagir Ulanbekov has to have in order for him to be successful, because we don't really see power on the feet with Tagir. Striking's all right. He stays pretty long. He's a pretty long flyweight, but Nate Maness is cutting from 135 down to 125 for this fight, unless I'm mistaken. This is listed at 125. And by the way, UFC Stats does have Almeida Grishin listed as a catchweight.
Okay.
It's listed as 265 on Tapology, but they do have it as a catchweight on UFC Stats. So I don't know. We're gonna have to find out where that one is later on in the week. But this is if Nate can stop these takedowns, I think that he has got a fantastic chance to win this fight and potentially even inside the distance. Tagir has definitely been one of the Dagestani disappointments. There are a lot of guys that train with Khabib who have been doing really well. Tagir's just not one of them. I thought he lost the fight to Nascimento. He got a win over Bruno Silva. That was a nice win. Lost to Tim Elliott. That's a really bad look. And Nate's fought the better brand of competition, I think, at this point, man. He's fighting 35ers, but he gives up a lot too. Nate's got a lot of holes in his defense, man. 40% striking defense. That's not good enough. Getting controlled by 53% by your opponents, that's not good enough. I think probably the value is on Ulanbekov here just because he's coming off that loss. But I don't know, dude. Nate Maness cutting that extra 10 pounds, having to wrestle against a guy in Ulanbekov who does it very well. It's a sketchy fight, man.
Yeah, I mean, every Nate Maness fight is a sketchy fight because I have all the confidence against this guy, and he goes out there and keeps pulling these wins out of his ass. Comeback win against Luke Sanders, massive comeback win against Tony Gravely. A controversial decision win against Johnny Munoz. I mean, he keeps getting it done somehow. But yeah, the 125 cut is weird. We got to see this guy on the scales. Weezy, this guy's fought at 155 before. He has multiple fights at 145. He has a fight or two at 155. This is his first fight ever at 125, which is nuts. That really shocks me.
5'10". He's listed at 5'10". That's crazy. Ulanbekov's a big flyweight at 5'7". Yeah. Dude, Maness, this has got to be a huge mistake. I can't see it being anything but a huge mistake, him cutting down to 125. I think it's going to be a fucking disaster. I mean, this guy knows what he's doing more than I do, obviously, but it just, like you said, dude, why are you fighting at 155 thinking you're going to make 125 and then wrestle with the Dagestani for 15 minutes after putting your body through that kind of hell? Oh man, this is sketchy, dude. This is really sketchy. You got to see Nate Maness on the scales, I think, before you act here.
I agree. I'd be, if he makes weight, I'll be impressed. I would be very impressed because even like 135 looks like he does cut down a lot of weight there. So, yeah, we'll take a look. But we take a look at the money line as well. Ulanbekov opened up minus 180, currently minus 176. Nate Maness opened up plus 155, currently plus 151. I'm going to take a look at the weigh-ins, see what's up there, but I don't know. I feel like Ulanbekov should win this fight, but I've also felt like Tony Gravely, Johnny Munoz, Luke Sanders, all these guys should have won the fight as well. So Nate Maness keeps beating my ass. So I think I'm going to stay away, Weezy.
Yeah, I can't blame you. And if you're on that Maness side, you got to wait to see him in weigh-ins. You don't want him looking like Joshua Weems did. I couldn't believe that the inside the distance on Marina Rodriguez was still sitting at plus 100 at fight time on DraftKings after Weems looked like he was literally going to die and cry on the scale and missed weight by 4 pounds.
Yeah, and the blue hair as well.
It was like turquoise or teal. Such a bad decision there too, man.
Yeah, and if you're making bad decisions with your haircut, you're going to get submitted in the first round all day.
Every time.
Yep. All right. Just taking a look at Nate Maness's Instagram. He looks to be in pretty solid shape there. So we'll see. Oh my gosh. He looks super small. So yeah, we'll see. We will see how it goes. But we'll move on to the next fight. We have the people's main event and probably like the 4th or 5th 1-800 gambler fight on the card. We have Chase Sherman going against Josh Parisian. We have Chase Sherman, 32 years old, 6'4", with a 78-inch reach. Josh Parisian, 33 years old, 6'4", with a 79-inch reach. Chase Sherman, 1 year younger. And then Parisian's going to have a 1-inch reach advantage. Chase Sherman, 1-4 in his last 5 fights, a decision loss to Andrei Arlovsky, a decision loss to Parker Porter, a submission loss to Jake Collier, a submission loss to Alexander Romanov, and then a knockout win against the walking concussion. Shout out Jared Vandera, looking solid in his decision loss there, but had a knockout win over him. Josh Parisian, 32 years old. 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Parisian has a knockout win over Chad Johnson. I believe he's on the Contender Series. A decision loss to Parker Porter. A decision win against Roy Martinez. A knockout loss against Dontel Mays. And a knockout win against Ulanbekov. Yeah, it's simple. I'm not touching this fight. I wouldn't even think about touching this fight. It's about a pick'em line here. And I feel like it's a very winnable fight for Josh Parisian. I think Josh Parisian should be able to get this down to the mat like he did against Ulanbekov. Chase Sherman's ground game is horrendous. He doesn't have a ground game. We saw Jake Collier take down Sherman and submit him shortly after. If Parisian's able to get this fight down to the mat, I think he smashes Sherman. But, can we trust Parisian to go out there and do that? It's a mess. This is low level. I wouldn't say these guys are the worst of the worst at heavyweight because Jared Vandera is there. I think Jared Vandera currently holds the title as of now because he is, as far as I'm concerned, still on the roster, but he should be cut soon. And maybe this is the battle of the worst heavyweight here. Yeah, I like Parisian to win the fight, but back to the giant douche or the turd sandwich, you got to pick one. I'm going to go with Parisian here, but I just don't really see myself betting on it. The Dontel Mays fight scares me a lot. Seeing Dontel Mays go out there and look like freaking Khabib and just taking down Parisian, just dominating him round after round and then finishing him. I think that was the fight where Mays was humping his face as well, just to add insult to injury there. Yeah, I'm not touching this fight, but I like Parisian to win. But yeah, just as far as putting money on it, I think I'm okay on that. Weezy, any thoughts on this fight of the night?
Yeah. Oh boy. it should be a really fun fight. The fat's going to be flying, spinning fat fists, spinning fat kicks from Parisian. And these guys, Chase Sherman, when he's on the feet, he throws hard, man. If he lands big, it'll be a fun fight. But when I saw the line, it was a pick'em. My immediate thought was like, shit, man, Parisian gets this thing to the ground once, man, and it might be enough for him to win the fight. Or it might be enough for him to just win enough of a round that he could win a decision if it goes the full 3. But then I went and I was looking at Parisian's takedowns. Dude, this guy is just as likely to end up on his back when he goes for takedowns as he is on top of his opponent. I mean, you see him, he'll go in there and then just like kind of like hug his opponent, like start falling to the ground and then hope that he can get out from under. It's bad, dude. It's really bad wrestling. And I was like, man, I'm going to look and see Parisian in the Vidal fight, Parisian in the Roque Martinez fight, in the Chad Johnson fight, in fights where he would have been looking to get the fight to the ground. How did the wrestling look? Long story short, it looked terrible. So I can't back Parisian here. And then, I mean, on the feet, I think it's kind of close, because the spinning fat kicks of Parisian are unorthodox enough that they can get you out of your striking rhythm. The fat fists as well, but Sherman's the much better boxer. Great leg kicks, and I've seen Parisian absorb a lot of leg kicks as well in the past. Dante Almeida's really destroyed him in the grappling, and I feel like it's going to be Chase Sherman winning this fight. Actually, here. He keeps his fight standing 91% or 89% of the time. And Parisian, not this great takedown artist. He's only gotten 4 takedowns in 6 fights, and he's getting out-controlled 39.75% to 16.25%, despite the fact that he's attempted just as many takedowns as his opponents have. So he's not efficient on the ground. He's not efficient getting the takedowns and winning minutes once he gets there. But so I think Sherman's going to win the fight, man. But am I betting it? No.
Don't bet on Chase Sherman. Don't do it. That's almost as bad as betting on like Jared Vanderaa or something.
Exactly. And that didn't go good for the Vanderaa bettors, even though he showed the most fight IQ I've ever seen him show, where he was fighting a boxer who was heavy on his lead leg, and he's like, I'm going to kick his lead leg. And it actually worked. I mean, but he still got his face jabbed off and lost the fight clearly, but still, at least he did something that made sense strategy-wise.
Yeah, I was impressed with Vanderaa. I was impressed. But yeah, I'm not betting on this fight. Chase Sherman opened up as a plus 125 dog. He's now a minus 115. It's about to pick him here. Josh Parisian opened up minus 145. He's at around like minus 105. So yeah, about to pick him here. Yeah, I don't feel like anybody should be betting on this fight. I mean, it just seems like a complete disaster. I guess if you're getting like plus money either way, I guess. But outside of that, I mean, flip a coin. This one can go either way, like most low-level heavyweight fights. So yeah, flip a coin. Who knows? It should be fun, like you said. It should be hilarious. It should be a hilarious fight. We're gonna get a couple laughs. This is an actual fight on a main card in the UFC, which is pretty funny. But like in terms of putting money on it, yeah, I can't get there.
You want to hear something funny, dude? Check this out. The 4 wins for Josh Parisian at the UFC level: over Greg Rebello, 0-2 at the UFC level; over Chad Johnson, 0-1, who's basically a 185er, not even a heavyweight, not even a light heavyweight. Like the guy weighed in at like 209 for that fight. Over Roque Martinez, who's 0-3, and then over Alan Badeau, 0-4. The combined UFC record of the guys that Parisian has beaten is 0 wins and 10 losses. And then you go up to one Chase Sherman, and you've got wins over a 1-3 Rashad Coulter, an 0-3 Damian Grabowski, a 1-5 Ike Villanueva, and a 2-6 Jared Vanderaa. The combined records of the 4 guys that Sherman beat at the UFC level: 4 wins and 17 losses. So we are scraping the bottom of the barrel here. And if you have a strong take, don't have a strong take.
I mean, you can't have a strong take on this.
Just can't. Guys, you just can't have a strong take on this. Hit yourself in the head with something blunt if you have a strong take on this, because you don't want that. You don't want an opinion on this fight other than you're going to laugh your ass off watching it with 0 units wagered on it.
Yeah, I mean, if you have some units on this fight, at the end of the night, you'll probably bust your TV with a baseball bat, right?
Exactly. It'll look like Brady's TV after he watched Tamires Vidal tape.
Yeah, and it doesn't get much worse than that. But yeah, we have 2 fights left. We have the co-main event and the main event. Before we get into it, guys, I'm going to take a 60-second commercial break, and we'll be right back. See you guys. And we are back. Shout out to all 120 of you hanging out with us on a Sunday here. We are breaking down UFC Vegas 64, a.k.a. the 1-800-GAMBLER card of the year. Should be a fun one. Should be a hilarious card to sit back, watch, and have a couple laughs, because these fights are going to be hilarious. Like the Sherman Parisian fight is going to be very funny. And, of course, the legendary fight of Ramona Pasquale going against Vidal. All right. Do you have a dono in the chat? Shout out to Mo Cat saying Lemos, Maverick, Tagir parlay plus 415. What do you think, Weezy? I'll kick this one off and you can give your thoughts. Parlaying 2 women's MMA fighters in the same parlay, that kind of sketches me out. And then also for me personally, the Tagir fight kind of sketches me out. So I wouldn't do it personally. If I had to take a guess and say, does it hit, does it not? I'll say it does hit. But women's MMA and parlays don't really go together well. But I think it hits for what it's worth. Weezy, any thoughts on that parlay?
Yeah, I mean, I think Lemos is very live at the price, but I don't get in the habit of parlaying plus 170s unless it's like my greasy 4-legger and I'm looking to get one fat leg in there to make it wider. But I think that Lemos is live at the number. I think Maverick should easily win that fight. And I think that Tagir fighting Maness, that fight might not even happen. I'd be shocked if Maness was able to make 126 and if he got medically cleared to fight, because he's a huge 135er at 5'10". I just don't see it happening. But I think Tagir wins. I think Maverick wins, but Lemos I would not put in a parlay.
Yeah, I don't know why I read it like Rodriguez. So yeah, I don't think Lemos wins either. So my bad. So I don't think it hits.
I think Lemos is live at the number, but parlaying it, I see what he's doing. He's probably just thinking to himself, all right, if Lemos doesn't win, who cares? But I can get a better number on Lemos by putting in 2 fighters that I think are easily going to win in Maverick and Tagir. And I see what you're doing there. So it's an interesting way to look at a parlay by getting a fat underdog and making it even a bigger number.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for a nice haircut to parlay, you throw Lemos in there for sure. But yeah, we'll see. But yeah, appreciate you, Mo, for the donation. Does go a long way there. All right, we will move on to the co-main event here. A fight that was supposed to happen a couple weeks ago. Something was up with D-Rod, had an injury, had to pull out. But yeah, Neil Magny, 35 years old, 6'3" with an 80-inch reach. Daniel Rodriguez, 35 years old, 6'1" with a 74-inch reach. Same age there. It's going to be Magny with a 2-inch height advantage and a 6-inch reach advantage. Neil Magny is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. He had a decision win against Robbie Lawler, a decision loss to Michael Chiesa, a decision win against Jeff Neal, a decision win against Max Griffin, and a submission loss to Shavkat Rakhmonov. Daniel Rodriguez 4-1 in his last 5 fights, a decision loss to Nicholas Dalby, a decision win against Mike Perry, a knockout win against Preston Parsons, a decision win against Kevin Lee, and then a decision win against the Leech. as well. Yeah, should be a fun fight here. Daniel Rodriguez, probably didn't deserve the decision in his last fight, but he did for a fact beat Nicholas Dalby. So maybe he got repaid a little bit back for that one, because he should have absolutely won that Nicholas Dalby fight. But yeah, close fight in his last fight with the Leech. I guess the red flag for me is like, what's up with D-Rod? He had that injury. What was it? Do you know what it was, Weezy?
It was a wrist, I believe. I believe it was a wrist injury, and long recovery from that.
Yeah, hold up. Buffalo, this is important. Brady, who has the better haircut, Lemos or Chiazon? I gotta go Lemos. Weezy, I'm curious to hear your thoughts. And it's got
on the other side, Brady. I'm on the other side, man. I like the Justin Bieber haircut. I think it really suits Macy's, the shape of her head, a little bit better. I think Lemos could do better than what she's doing right now. Gotta go with Macy on that one.
That's fair. You like that bleach blonde. I like the blonde highlights for Lemos myself. So, I mean, both are great options there. What a great question, Buffo. But
yeah, that's great stuff, man. We got the sharpest chat out there in the game.
Doesn't get much sharper than that question there. This fight's, I mean, it's a good fight. It's a good co-main event, but it's another closely lined fight. I'm really high on Daniel Rodriguez, but Neil Magny's going to have a 6-inch reach advantage. He's going to have a height advantage as well. And that wrist injury, it kind of concerns me a little bit because he's not taking too much time off, about a month. I think he was supposed to fight like a month or even less ago. So, Weezy, what are your thoughts on this co-main event here?
Yeah, it's interesting. So first of all, we love the size advantage that Magny has here. He's 2 inches taller, 6-inch reach advantage, and he's the same age as Daniel Rodriguez, because usually Magny's the old guy in there, but Daniel's the same age as him. Magny's a lot more experienced, 15 more fights, about 220 more minutes in the pro cage, and almost 5 more years as a pro fighter. He's also got 17 more UFC level fights and about 240 more minutes in the UFC cage. So big size advantage for Magny, big experience advantage for Neil. Daniel Rodriguez, the better finisher overall. 34% finish rate, though, for Magny at the UFC level, and it's 38% for Rodriguez. So these guys are finishing at a similar rate at the UFC level, but it's Rodriguez who's finishing more as a pro. Rodriguez also been very durable. Never lost a prison fight, never been finished as a professional mixed martial artist in 19 professional fights. And Neil Magny's been finished a lot. 6 of his 8 UFC losses, and we got a 78%. Yeah, so 7 of his 9 pro losses. So Rodriguez a lot more durable here. In terms of the striking, Magny's going to have that 6-inch reach advantage, but Daniel Rodriguez, the strength of his game is that boxing of his. He's got excellent boxing, really good technical, straight punches down the pipe, good footwork, good movement, nice power on the punches as well, good accuracy, good defense. He's a great minute winner and moment winner in the stand-up. Magny, good jab, but his striking isn't on Rodriguez's level in the stand-up. What Magny does well is he uses his conditioning as a weapon and drags fights into deep water, which is something that people have not done to Rodriguez successfully. And that's why I kind of like this matchup stylistically for D-Rod here. Daniel Rodriguez is spending about 11% of his fights in control time positions for or against, which means he's boxing 89% of the time, where he's the most comfortable. But Magny is controlling his opponents about 22% of the time. He's being controlled 32% of the time. So about 55% of his fights are taking place in control time positions for or against. Magny's going to be wanting to get this thing into the clinch. He's going to be wanting to go for takedowns, avoid the submissions from the 10th Planet Black Belt here in Rodriguez. But I'm worried about Daniel here. The fact that this guy's been a career 170er, and he had to ask for a 180-pound catchweight at his first fight back after the wrist injury is a huge red flag, in my opinion. He looked fat, didn't he?
He looked a little out of shape.
He did. He looked like somebody who would have just looked like he would have looked like his old self if he had just cut down to 170. But the question then becomes, what kept him from making that cut? Because it's not like Rodriguez has just been on the couch eating tacos. The guy's obviously been training. The guy's boxing looked good enough to hang with Li Jingliang for 3 rounds. and at least be in a somewhat close fight with him. I thought Lee won as well, but I mean, that's a really good opponent to get a win against. So, and then when we look at the strength of schedule, Rodriguez has got the better ratio overall, but it's Magny who's fighting the more experienced opponents. And I like the wins better for Rodriguez. At a 1.78 ratio and 9.38 total fights, I think Rodriguez has the better wins here. So this is going to be one where I'm going to want to see Daniel Rodriguez weigh in at 170, 171 with no problems before I even consider looking at his money line in this fight, because Magny, I think he needs to have success in the control time positions in order to be able to win this matchup. Do you see Magny winning minutes on the feet against D-Rod? If it's 170-pound D-Rod in shape with a healed wrist?
No, and this is in the small cage as well, which I think that favors the striking of Rodriguez, but you could also say it favors like the grappling of Magny. So, no, I think Rodriguez is absolutely the better striker.
Yeah, I agree with you, So where does Magny win this fight? Because if he can't get this fight to where it's in control time positions more than 11% of the time, which is what Rodriguez has been doing, and Rodriguez has faced 25 takedown attempts in 9 fights. He's given up 6, but he's getting control less than 9% of the time, which is excellent. And Magny, it hasn't exactly been this control time monster, this efficiency grappling monster, this lay and pray grappler. He's definitely more all in all aspects, striking, clinch, and grappling. And he spends a lot of time in all of those positions, while Daniel's just been really good at keeping it at striking range. I think if he keeps this at striking range, he should win it. If it's 2 healthy wrists and fists for Dan, I think that this is his fight as long as he comes in at 170 and looks like the old D-Rod. But that 180-pound version that showed up against Lee, I think maybe that guy gets tired against Neil Magny, and that's not a good thing to be in the 3rd round against Neil Magny, because he's going to be fresh in that 3rd round, and he's going to be turning up the volume on you.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it. I mean, wait for the weigh-ins. If D-Rod's in phenomenal shape, maybe take a look at him. If not, maybe just pass. But yeah, the line is pretty close here. Magny opened up as a -125 favorite, currently -119. Daniel Rodriguez opened up +105, currently -101. So yeah, pretty closely lined fight here. In terms of like the over-under, I think I would kind of lean the over side here. I mean, if Prison couldn't finish Daniel Rodriguez, I don't think anybody's finishing him. Magny, like you said, he has been finished before, but I don't know, maybe like the finish only for Daniel Rodriguez, because again, nobody's finishing Daniel. So I think there's some interesting ways to play it. But yeah, I think we gotta wait for these weigh-ins.
Yeah, I think we got to see where D-Rod's at, man, because we hadn't seen him for a while. That Kevin Lee fight was a long time ago. Yeah. And then when he showed up to fight Lee, I just didn't like what I saw, man. The performance wasn't terrible or anything like that. Daniel's never going to be out of his depth in the striking exchanges against almost anybody at 170. So that looked fine to me, but this guy's a professional mixed martial artist, and he's fighting a guy in Magny who's got 26 UFC fights. He's got a gas tank that goes for days, and he's weaponized it in the past. You don't want to be betting on a guy like Rodriguez if he shows up and looks anything like he did against Lee.
Yep, I cannot agree more. So we'll wait for the weigh-ins for that one. But yeah, we had the main event, Weezy. Marina Rodriguez, Amanda Lemos. I already see some people crapping on the main event. I don't know. I think it's going to be a fun one. We have Rodriguez. She's 35 years old, 5'6" with a 65-inch reach. Lemos, she is 35 years old, 5'4" with a 65-inch reach. Rodriguez, 2-inch height advantage. Same age, same reach. Rodriguez, she is 4-1 in her last 5 fights. A decision loss to Carla Esparza, a knockout win against Amanda Ribas, a decision win against Michelle Waterson, decision win against Mackenzie Dern, and then a decision win against Yan Xiaonan. As far as Lemos, she is 4-1 in her last 5 fights. She had a knockout win against Livian Souza, a knockout win against Montserrat Ruiz, a decision win against Angela Hill, a submission loss to Jessica Andrade, and then a submission win against Michelle Waterson. Yeah, Lemos had a lot of hype on her going into that Hill fight, and she was going out there and finishing people, but you got to take a look at who she was finishing, right? Livian Souza, who I don't think is in the UFC anymore. If she is, she needs to be cut soon. Montserrat Ruiz, who probably is not UFC caliber. And then she finally took that big step up against Angela Hill. And honestly, like, that was a close fight. That fight literally could have went either way. You got to give Lemos the first round easily. She hurt Hill bad. The second round, I thought Hill won it pretty cleanly. And all really came down for me was the third round. I thought the third round really could have went either way. And she was a big favorite in that fight against Angela Hill. And then she takes an even bigger step up in competition against Jessica Andrade, the very handsome Jessica Andrade. And Andrade finishes her in the very first round. And then she takes a little bit of a step down against Michelle Watterson and submits her in the second round there. So this is a tough matchup, I feel, for Amanda Lemos. And I feel like the toughest part of this matchup for her is the 5-round aspect of things. I still don't trust the cardio of Lemos. And I'm not talking about was it Leslie Smith a couple of years ago where it was at 135 and she gassed out in the second round. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the Angela Hill fight where in the second round, she just didn't really show anything. And it was the third round. She just looked really, really tired. This is a 5-round fight. And I just have serious concerns about what happens if Lemos gets to the fourth and the fifth round, because typically in fights, I have concerns when it gets to the third round. So this is a spot where I do like Rodriguez, but I feel like Lemos can definitely have success early, especially with the grappling. And she hasn't really went to her grappling a ton. She has a couple submission wins. I believe she went out there and submitted Ashley Yoder, I think it was, in the first round. And Marina Rodriguez, she has struggled with her takedown defense, but honestly, like, it's getting much, much better. Like, that was something she really struggled with earlier in her career. So if Rodriguez is able to keep this standing, I think the striking, at least early on, is going to be very competitive. But just as the fight goes on, I can't trust Lemos' cardio. So yeah, I do like Rodriguez here to win. And kind of a hot take, Weezy. Maybe it's a hot take, maybe it's not. I kind of like Violence in this fight, and it's probably going to be a playable line here. I think Violence is a decent look here because Lemos has never seen a fourth round, never seen a fifth round, and we have seen her really tire out in second and third rounds before. And Rodriguez she hits hard. She went out there and like starched Amanda Hebos, hurt her very bad multiple times, finished her. It would not shock me if this was like a Lemos early type situation or Rodriguez late type situation. So I kind of lean Violence here. I lean Rodriguez, but the price tag is a little bit too wide for my liking in a fight like this. But yeah, I like Rodriguez due to the 5-round aspect of things. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this fight here?
Yeah, I agree with you on the Violence. First of all, we got Southpaw versus Orthodox. That opens up both fighters' power weapons, and both fighters have power, but Amanda Lemos in particular has power. But we like Rodriguez's experience advantage, about 150 more minutes in the pro cage, 4 more fights, and also 2 more fights at the UFC level, and about 100 more minutes almost in the UFC cage, more than Amanda Lemos. Lemos, the much better finisher as a professional and at the UFC level, but it's also Lemos who's been finished in both of her losses, while Marina Rodriguez has never been finished. When we look at the striking, I look at this as minute winner versus moment winner. It's very clearly that. You know, Marina Rodriguez landing 5.03, only absorbing 3.07. So almost a +2 significant strike differential per minute there, while Lemos is at about +0.5. So she's also outlanding her opponents, throwing about the same amount of volume, while Rodriguez is throwing about over 3 more significant strike attempts per minute than her opponents. Rodriguez has 2 knockdowns in 10 fights. Amanda Lemos has 5 knockdowns. 5 knockdowns in 8 fights. So a ton of power there. And neither of these ladies has ever been knocked down, but Marina Rodriguez, absorbs about 1.33 less significant strike attempts significant strikes per minute than Lemos does. And neither one of them has ever been dropped in a fight, but Marina Rodriguez about 10% better on the striking defense. So it's going to be interesting to see if Lemos wants to try to get into the grappling exchanges here. But, I think Lemos would just be best suited trying to take Marina's head off early, plain and simple. Because if she doesn't land a big shot, right, she's not winning 3 of these 5 rounds. She's not going to go out there and grapple early and have success doing that and then have enough left in the tank, to not get knocked out in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th, because Marina's got a lot of power in her own right, especially if you stand in front of her. But I like Marina's wins a lot better. I like Marina's strength of schedule overall a lot better. They're both losing to quality opponents, but Marina's losses are even better than Lemos's. Lemos is going to need to either find a big shot or maybe get a takedown and work into the grappling and hunt for a submission here. But other than that, I think Marina Rodriguez round 4-5 decision would probably be the bet here. If I could get it around close to even. But I also think Lemos to get a knockout in the first or second round is potentially live here, to get a finish in the first or the second round, because she's extremely dangerous. She doesn't particularly pace herself well, but I think that that's her best path to victory here. As we've seen, Amanda's finished 4 of her 6 UFC wins inside the distance. And, the ladies that she didn't finish, like Angela Hill in particular, and nobody's finishing Angela Hill. So it's a great main event. This is a good striker versus striker matchup, but it's a minute-winning striker with great conditioning versus a front-loaded power striker who's a moment winner. So I'm going to take that minute winner. I don't like the bet on the puncher's chance, but in this case, you're getting plus money for the puncher's chance. It's a good main event. It's a good matchup. Both of these ladies are exciting fighters, in my opinion. And I think we're going to have a really fun fight here to end, and I think it's going to be Marina Rodriguez by 4th round finish, 5th round finish, or by decision.
Yeah, I think that's a good look. Or, yeah, like I said, just violence in general, I think covers both sides. Lemos,
agreed.
Rodriguez late, and I'm hoping it's like, I think it's gonna be plus money, but you never know. But sometimes they're on it, sometimes they're not. So we'll see. But yeah, we'll take a look at the line here, and I think it's about accurate. We got Rodriguez opening up minus 150, currently minus 205. Lemos opening up plus 130, currently plus 175. I mean, if we were talking haircuts and who has the better haircut, the line would be flipped. It would be Lemos has the decent size favor, but we're not. We're talking the fight, and I do lean Rodriguez there to win. Don't think I'll be placing a bet on her, but I will be probably taking a placing a bet on either violence or, like you said, that 4-5 decision at plus money as well. I think are both solid ways to play this fight.
Agreed, man. I think violence is a really sneaky play here because, sometimes you can get plus money for a 5-round fight not going to decision, but a lot of times I don't think that these bookies, they take the 5-round analytics into account, which is a good advantage for us, especially if there's a fight stylistically like this one where you've got a chance for violence on both sides because of Lemos's non-5-round conditioning and because of her front-loaded moment winning early in fights. So I think it's a great spot too.
Yeah, sometimes the bookies put the under 2.5 rounds at plus 136 for a Marcos Rogerio de Lima fight. Come on, bookies. What are you doing?
Yeah, that was a nice, easy one, dude. That was a great hit for you.
Yeah, it was sweat free. It was nice. But yeah, we did it. We went through all 13 fights. Yeah, this is an interesting card. This is a very interesting card. Kind of like last week, a bunch of landmines. I thought last week there was a bunch of landmines, and it kind of played out that way. Like there was a bunch of surprising results. Hooper getting his ass completely shaved. Jacoby decision going the other way. The Cater injury, like last night's card was weird. And I feel like this card can be weird as well. So I'm going to tread lightly, Weezy. What I think I'm going to do is just bet. There a lot of violent spots stick out. Violence in the main event, Lemos Rodriguez. I think violence in that Minner fight really sticks out as well. The under 1.5 in the Almeida fight sticks out. So yeah, we'll have to see what happens. We'll have to wait for the props, but no props yet. And I don't blame them. I mean, I'm sure not a lot of people are looking forward to this card, but yeah, no props, no over-unders. We typically do have those out, but Weezy will be going live tomorrow for probability, and we should have them out by then.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to get my prop template ready tonight for us and see if we can jump on some of these lines when they do open and see if they make any mistakes that we can jump on and make some money because, like we said earlier, man, not the best card on paper, but if we come out 5 units plus, we're going to be cheering this card from the rooftops. So let's try to find our spots, man. Let's try to take advantage of their mistakes. And they might not even be giving a shit much this week. Football's in full swing. We got the World Series going on. There are some other leagues that are coming back. Maybe these MMA bookies will kind of open up some things in our favor that we can take advantage of, and then we can enjoy this card more than the quality of what the fights are going to be.
Yeah, I mean, I think the bookies were sleeping on a couple spots, like that Christian Rodriguez inside the distance you were talking about. It was plus 100. I was like, why is this not moving? What are we missing?
I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
I was even sitting there going, why do I only have one unit on this?
Same. But yeah, appreciate everybody hanging out. Uncle Weezy, let the people know where they can find you and what you have going on throughout the rest of the week.
Well, like Brady just told you, tomorrow on the MMA Engine, we'll be doing probability probably before Clint goes live here on Pub Sports Radio for the Die Hard MMA podcast. And then you can find me on my YouTube channel, Uncle Weezy, Tuesday night, 10 o'clock Central Time for Just the Tip. We'll break down all of these fights from a stats and tape study perspective, give you my track bets for the week, finish with Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. And, other than that, man, we just got to try to find ways to stack cash tickets like flapjacks for this event. Welcome to all the new members of the Pub Sports Radio channel. Thanks for the dono, our guy Mokat. And let's just win some money this week and then move on to UFC 281, which is going to be next week, Brady, which looks like a really good card.
Yes, it's going to be a very good card for sure. All right, we did it, guys. Leave a like on your way out. Subscribe to the channel. You can follow me on Twitter, DFS_numbers, Instagram, DFS by the numbers. My full card breakdown should be coming out either tomorrow. If not tomorrow, then on Tuesday. Best of luck. UFC Vegas 64. Should be fun. Should be funny. And as always, let us make some money. So see you guys later, and best of luck.